Yeah, indeed.
Welcome back to the second stage of the fifth edition of the Big Data Conference in Europe. My name is Alexander, and it's a pleasure to host such a high-level conference that focuses on big data, high-load, data science, machine learning, and AI. Today, we are live streaming to more than 15 different countries. Thank you all for joining. We are not meeting on site as usual. However, we expect 2021 online edition to be just as good as it was before. For this purpose, we are using this advanced event platform, which allows us to live stream sessions, engage with each other through the live chat, check schedules, get to know all the speakers as well as their attendees at this conference. What is more, you can visit our sponsors at their virtual booth and of course get help through the help desk if you got lost in the colorful environment. All of the virtual event platform possibilities you can explore during the breaks. We will have a special slide for you explaining the different platform functions. This year, each track will be moderated by different and well-known IT experts who will do their best to make the conference experience as enjoyable as possible. I'm Alexander. I'm one of them. I have an IoT podcast and work in Berlin as an IoT platform startup. Moving forward, this year we'll also have some great sponsors who I'm very grateful to quickly introduce you to now after our first talk this morning. Our silver sponsor this year is Accenture, a leading global professional services company providing a broad range of services and solutions in strategy, consulting, digital, technology, and operations. We also have a knowledge partner for today, Pact, who will award the most active big data conference attendees with an ebook of their choice. Participate actively during the conference, rate the sessions, and win a book from Pact. After the conference, the most active attendees will be selected and will be given a chance to choose a book from the wide range of Pact books. Almost last thing for me, I would like to encourage you to be as interactive as possible during the conference, focus, and enjoy. The lineup this year is amazing. I bet you know that already. That's it from me, dear friends. Now I would like to introduce you to our next speaker. Welcome, Kris van der Mast. You have the
Good morning.
for using Visual Studio Code for your machine learning environments.
So yes, a pretty long. I know.
Enjoy your talk and happy to listen info. And for the participants, feel free to engage in the Q&A and chat for now.
Okay. Well, good morning from Belgium. This is my story about using Visual Studio Code for your machine learning environments. But let's first start with this one. Yeah. Indeed, why Visual Studio Code? Because, jokingly aside, everyone knows that this is the ultimate tool to do all your research in and all your writings. No, just kidding, of course. So before I start my story, let me introduce me and get some 15 seconds of fame. My name is Kris van der Mast. I come from Belgium, where it's a bit rainy at the moment, unfortunately. I have my own small business, Vaha. I'm a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional since 2007, which is like 15 years now. First for ASP.NET and since 2016 for Azure. I'm also part of the Microsoft ASP Insiders group. Together with some other great people, I run the Belgian Azure user group called Azure. And every year we try to do an in-person event, unfortunately not this year, called Cloud Brew because, well, it's all about Azure and cloud. And we like beer brewing, so Cloud Brew. The next installment of that will be mid-November next year. So we also have like a lot of international people attending. It's a very beautiful city between Brussels and Antwerp, great historical city. So if you want to come over, just already check your agenda for 18th and 19th of November next year. So during the day, I'm a solution architect working mostly with data integration, both on cloud and on-prem. At the moment, I work at a big international company that is doing a lot of integrations between I think 45 partners, and then legacy applications. We're also integrating with mainframe. We're integrating with Azure, with some other cloud providers. We're also doing on-prem installments with legacy code, with some very new, brand new custom-made applications. So a lot of things to keep me busy during the day. And during the night, I try to help my wife with her PhD. She graduated like 2 years ago at the university in big data and AI after switching after a good amount of time at the bank as a managerial position. So now she's pursuing a PhD in computer vision. Small detail, and I got some news. This Friday, I'm going to start the same big data and AI studies at the KUL University in Belgium as well. So yeah, fingers crossed, because I'm going to be a student again. Wow, interesting. Okay, enough about me. Let's talk a bit like what we're going to see today in a very short time. So I'm just going to pick on some things that I think might be of interest to you. Of course, there's way more to be done. I could have made like an entire workshop for an entire day and just specific about all things like data and data science related to Visual Studio Code. It's way broader than that, but let's try to just whet that appetite for you. So VS Code, some tooling, we're going to see some data because, well, basically big data is all about data somehow, of course. I'm not going to show extremely large data sets just to get you up and running. I'm going to make use of Python because that seems to be the main language among data scientists nowadays. I also like it. It's very easy to learn. And I also used Visual Studio Code to learn Python myself, together with my wife, who had no technical background whatsoever. So I'm going to show you some previews on that, how we try to grasp Python, how everything works. So perhaps if you're in a coder dojo or whatever, teaching young children at school or newcomers who don't have a technical background, this might be of interest to you as well. And of course, we're going to try to integrate with something in cloud because I'm on a small laptop here, which doesn't have a GPU whatsoever. So I'm going to spin up a workspace in Azure and train a model over there. Okay. So first a bit about Visual Studio Code. So on one side, you have like an editor, like Notepad, as I jokingly said in my introduction. On the other side, you have a full-blown IDE, which usually costs like a big amount of money, like Visual Studio, which I basically use most of the day, doing C# and .NET, or for other things, of course. Those things, these are usually like the distinctions between like one is lightweight, fast, folder-based workflows, and keyboard-centered. I'm a keyboard shortcut fan, unlike some of my colleagues, but I really love keyboard shortcuts. And if you want to make use of Visual Studio Code, really learn keyboard shortcuts. It really speeds up your typing, your getting into the bit of success very easily. On the other hand, of course, you have IDEs, which also, they use more like project systems. They also understand code, actually more and more into Visual Studio Code as well. And let's show it over here. So Visual Studio Code, when it started several years ago, created by Microsoft, they tried to find that sweet spot. And at the moment, I'm seeing a bit more that light blue arrow is going to the other direction. So it's becoming better and better. We're now recently at version 1.60. So every month there's a new update. And if you want to live on the close edge, actually there's a daily build that you can also subscribe to. I didn't install that on this machine. I like the more stable ones because I'm also using that for work. You can get it from code.visualstudio.com. There's also a lot of documentation over there, things you can try, code snippets. I handily copy-pasted a couple of them, of course, myself from there. So basically, this is your starting point if you want to go there. Let's quickly glance over further things, and then let's take a look at the site. So this is Visual Studio Code. On the one side, you have the view bar. You have like the sidebar where all your precious assets and resources live. Then, of course, where your code is being made, there's a panel at the bottom where usually like you have like your debugging console, your terminal, your outputs, variables, whatever. And of course, you also have like a status bar, which can be sometimes, depending on all the extensions that you introduce to it, become a bit cluttered. So here, this is a sample in TypeScript. Of course, we're going to make use of Python. These are some of the things that you could do. Very small. Basically, we're going to see it in action, but I just want to see like some things like find all references, easy renaming, context-aware, basically, as long as there's like a language server. For my Python, it's Pylance, which is newly introduced like since 2 or 3 months ago, I think, by Microsoft. It's becoming way better than the old one, so that's pretty cool. Microsoft's usually investing, by the way, in Python for Visual Studio Code, and also in PyTorch, if you're interested into that. Okay, So as I told you, let's quickly grab here my browser. Okay, let's quickly check if I'm still sharing my screen. Okay, super. So this is basically like code.visualstudio.com. You can see you can download it for macOS, Windows, Linux. So basically it's all over there. Here you have like the stable version, and here's that nightly build that I called like Insider. So every day you might get a new update, which is cool if you like living close on the edge, or if you're really desperately awaiting a certain bug fix, which unfortunately sometimes happens. I had it like a couple of weeks ago with my wife, but luckily they're quite rapidly into responding. So that was really cool. Here you see like a lot of documentation. So for most of the languages like JavaScript, Python, Java, C++, C#, whatever, it's really cool. There's some updates, some blogs, extensions. Like there's a myriad of extensions. I didn't see this one. That's cute. As you can see, like Jupyter, whatever, Python, it's really cool. There's also a lot of themes and etc. So we'll see more about that in a while when we're doing some demos. So this is basically where you can get it. And let's quickly go here. So basically, this is my Visual Studio Code environment. Okay. So I prepared some sample things over here, like here you can search and replace if you want. There's Git integration, which is really cool because, well, data scientists, they usually live on Colab or Jupyter server. But most of the other teams in usually the IT department, they write code, and somehow you want to integrate with that, or you want to keep a copy of some SQL statements or something. Git is a very good way to integrate that. You can also integrate with GitHub, as you can see here, because basically it's Microsoft, so they put it first space. But there's also plugins for Azure DevOps, for Bitbucket, for whatever you want, or also locally if you want, of course. This is some debugging pane, some Remote Explorer. So these are the extensions. As I told you, here I was looking for, say, for example, like PyTorch snippets. And if you install this one, I didn't do that now, but then apparently you can get, like, if you type this, and then automatically code will be generated for you. There's also like a lot of other things, and these are some that I have installed at the moment. These are being recommended for me, which is always cool. So you see, I do a lot of Azure, some Azure templating. Here I also have like an Anaconda extension pack, some machine learning for Azure. I'm doing a lot of Azure actually. It's also C#. The great thing is that you also, thanks to those extensions, there's also something called like a language servers installed. So basically you get IntelliSense. We'll also see that in a short while. So also for Azure pipelines, apparently I installed something. And here's a nice theme that I installed, Cobalt 2, which is very popular, especially with JavaScript people, I noticed. I also personally like it. I now installed something else. Here you can do testing. There's support for Docker, for SQL Server if you're interested in that, or for Azure. Depending on the extension that you use or install, basically, more of these things are being installed. So not every extension adds something over here to the gutter. So basically the only important ones like Docker, Azure, and of course, where your code lives. Okay, cool. For the agenda, I started out with data because usually you start as a data scientist with basically data. If you don't have data, you don't have input, you cannot make anything or make cool machine learning things on it, of course, or neural networks or whatever. So I created here, and I still notice that a lot of times I see people getting CSV files. Basically, I've been now in the business, in the IT business for more than 20 years. And I've written several applications in real life production code and applications, which basically spit out CSV files because a lot of interaction is still being done by CSV because it's easy to read. It's a multi platform. That's all nice. I can open it over here, as you can see, but this doesn't really look that first of all, appealing. I have to look, where's my columns? So I installed an extension called Excel Viewer. Let's see this one. And this basically gives me some extra functionality. So if I now open this and say open preview, now it's a bit of a longer file. So here, voila. So this is what that extension does to my CSV file. I get like a very clean and nice look over here. So here I can also do some sorting. I can do some filtering, which is really nice. And just by the install of like a click of a button of the correct extension. Pretty neat. Another thing that I also prepared is I put a SQL database on Azure SQL. And so I want to connect with that. And I'm not, I used a sample database called AdventureWorks LT. Basically, I just found it on the internet, so you can install it whenever you create a new Azure SQL database. You can either start from an empty one or you can start from a sample. So I, well, opted for that sample this time because I wanted to have some data to be showing. And what I can do now is create a new file by Ctrl-N, and let's see if I can do here. This is something new since recently. It's called screencast mode. So whenever now I do like Ctrl-P, for example, let's try to, here you can see now at the bottom which commands I'm using. So Ctrl-N for a new file. And I'm going to do Ctrl-Shift-P. Basically, Ctrl-P and Ctrl-Shift-P are the basic keyboard shortcuts. Ctrl-P can go into like your code understanding, or going to a certain place in the file if you want. And Ctrl-Shift-P is going into the command palette. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say MS SQL Connect. Again, I installed a extension for Microsoft SQL Server. So I'm going to connect to my database. Yes, okay, let me first change this to SQL. Okay, so now you also see here this thing over here, the chevron. So let's try to zoom in and zoom out a little bit. So that's Control plus or Control minus. And let's connect here. As you can see, I already created my connection profile, so I'm just going to make use of this one. And I'm going to say select from sys.schemas, because I'm not very familiar with this one. I'm going to type Ctrl-Shift+E. So now it's going to get data from Azure. And here I get all my schemas. And this sales LT seems to be something like informative and something dedicated, because these seem to be very standard to me. I'm going to quickly go on my screencast for the moment. So let me quickly copy paste this one in. And let's see what we can do to explore. So Ctrl-Shift-E. And here I can see, of course, my schemas again, because I put this one. Let's, if you just want to have this one, so this. Now, the cool thing is, perhaps you already saw it on the right side here, I can save this output as a CSV file, as JSON, or as an Excel file. So here I have an address, I have a customer, and I have a customer address. So most likely that's going to be of particular interest to me. So let's start from sales LT, and notice here I have IntelliSense, so it directly knows the schema. And if I press dot, I can see here that I have an address table. So inner join sales LT dot customer address CA on CA dot address ID equals a dot address ID inner join sales LT dot customer Okay, so you notice that I have a lot of IntelliSense. So basically, it just took out the schema data, this extension, and made it aware so I can easily find the things I'm interested in. So now let's quickly go over this one and see if I can get some address data. And let's close this one because I don't need it anymore. By the way, you noticed I didn't have to save the file to be able to run it. That's also pretty cool. So this is my output. Now, for example, I don't have like that fancy filtering over here, but I can save it to a CSV file, and then I can make use of that CSV viewer, of course. Okay, great. Now, as I told you from the beginning, my wife, she didn't have a technical background, and yeah, I also didn't know Python, so we both learned Python at the same moment. And what we try to do is get something to learn, and what basically made it easier for my wife to get a grasp of like what are objects and object-oriented programming in Python. So I found a very nice plugin, an extension, and I would like to show it to you. So perhaps if you know people who are interested in learning Python, this might be of interest for them as well. So this is just some piece of code that I found on the internet, and I can do Ctrl-Shift-P again, and I can say here Python preview. Of course, I installed another extension for that, the visualizer. And yeah, this already, of course, took away my thunder. So basically here in red, you see like what's going to be the next line to execute and the line that has just executed. And here we will see on the side, let's press Ctrl-B to hide the sidebar to have more space over here. So here I can go and forward. So here my list is being put. You have an input on the global frame. This is my list with all the tuples inside, which is pretty nice. And here we're creating an empty list. I'm quickly going to pass forward. So basically it's going to show like if you're younger than 30, then apparently you're still hip and cool. If you're older than 30, then apparently you're old. So basically I'm old according to this program. Well, I don't feel old, but still. The person who designed this small application apparently most likely is underneath 30. So here, this is pretty cool to see. You can just take like any small piece of code that you want. And personally, for me, this was very handy to explain, especially if you like have multiple objects and inheritance and such. This also shows over here what's being made, what's being put into memory. For us, this was a really good help to visualize and then learn Python from the beginning. So if you know people that are interested into this or might have an interest in learning Python, this might be a very interesting thing for you as well. Okay, cool. Let's show our bar again. Wow, Jupyter. I think every data scientist makes use of that on Google Colab or some other search site. I think I've seen it as the most common thing to do. The first time I saw something about data science, it was all Jupyter from left to right, from top to bottom. Visual Studio Code can also do that. So basically, I installed Anaconda 3 on this laptop. And I installed the extensions for that, again, here. Like if I can go here and go for Jupyter or Jupyter. So here you can see like, yeah, I installed this one. This is constantly being improved, by the way, by Microsoft. So I could have also perhaps like installed this one. This apparently is deprecated at the moment. So yeah, there's quite a lot of things to be shown there. So how do I create a new Jupyter notebook? Ctrl-Shift-P, I told you that's going to be the main keyboard shortcut that you need to remember from this session, Ctrl-Shift-P and Ctrl-P. And I can say here, like, create new blank notebook. Okay, so here you can see, like, I have my cell. Let's save this one. Let's give it an interesting name. BLT, because we're going to do a bit of matplotlib into this one. Okay. Now watch, we're going to have IntelliSense for this as well. So if I type in import, so you already see like I already have things over here. import matplotlib. So basically, it's looking into all the packages that I have. .pyplot as plt, import numpy as np, because that's basically the convention. And let's call here like np.linspace. Now you see, again, IntelliSense, which is pretty nifty. And here, this is the first time that we're going to see this. This is basically like, yeah, what does this take? So basically, it takes the documentation in NumPy and shows it over here. So here you can see if you're completely unfamiliar with this method, you might want to see like, what can I do with it? Here's some samples code, also some. Here's some sample code, which is all coming from the documentation that is written into the NumPy code. So here you can quickly get up to speed. It's quite handy, actually, to learn a new function. And let's say over here. So PLT, again, let's see, like, and we're going to make a new plot. That star at the front basically is also, it's called IntelliCode. So basically, it tries that's something from Microsoft, basically IntelliCode. It tries to figure out like what are the most popular pieces of commands or functions or whatever being used with this library. They did a lot of artificial intelligence themselves, apparently, based on, I think, like 500,000 GitHub repos. But it also can and tries to learn, especially the newer versions, from your own code. That you see, like if you make use of matplotlib, for example, and you do a lot of plots. So after a while, you will start seeing this plot coming up as a first citizen. So let's call here like x and do np.sinus. So apparently I like sinus a lot. Basically, I just tested it a lot, so that's why in this workspace it's showing up. And then let's do show. Now, Shift Enter, and here I need to specify my thing. My comma should be okay. So now it's trying to connect to my kernel. Okay, it takes a bit longer than I expected, but most likely it's because the first time I run this. Okay, super. So it just took like 4.3 seconds. I can clear all the output. Let's try to run that one. So you see, it was just like starting up and getting my Jupyter my Conda environment up and running. So now it takes just like 0.2 seconds. I can see this. I can save this file. I can show this in a bigger way. A nice thing is like here I have my variables. So here I can see like I only have like basically like specified one variable called x, but here I can go into this one and do a data viewer. If you're making use of pandas, this is really interesting because here you can start like, yeah, filtering, trying to figure out things. It's really handy. Okay, we're going to see some other Jupyter notebooks later on, so that's pretty nifty as well. Here I created a small little game, and if I just press this one, and let's create this one. Okay, it seems my push is not really on. Okay, so basically this is just a tic-tac-toe game. Let's press 5. Let's press 1. Let's press 4. Let's quickly play this one. And 6. So basically X1. Do you want to play another game? No, thank you. So this is also just some code that I found on the internet. I didn't make all this myself, but I just wanted to make use of it to show you what can be done. So basically, I just showed you the game, what's basically happening. And let's say, for example, if I have like multiple lines, this is like a very small piece of code. It's just like 111 lines of code. But I'm not familiar with this particular code. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff being done over here. I see a function over here, which is always nice. So if I want to know, like, look, if I hover it, I already get some more information. And if I want to see like where this code is all being used, this function, I can show code references. So apparently there's a lot of places where this code gets called, this sprint board. And this is how I can interact with my code and then go over there and then say, for example, I want to go over here. So I just double click it and then I go to that line and a piece of code of interest. So apparently here I see something of came over and some turn. Okay, nice. So this is basically how I get to know my code. I can go into the references, I can go deep dive, I can go to like, yeah, where was this code being made? Another one that I showed you is Control P. So here I can go, for example, and these are things that you need to learn a little bit from the beginning, but go to line and just write colon over here, and let's say 45, and it directly goes to line 45. So this is very easy to navigate. It also showed me that I can type in add, and here I get all the interesting parts of information. So here I get functions, and you see that beautiful highlighting over there. This is some, here, this is my game function, and these are some variables. So it directly jumps to that. So if you don't know where exactly something is, even like in a for each part. So this is also how you can navigate your code. Now, some debugging. Let's press, for example, like I put here a breakpoint. And let's see over here. If I now press like F5, we're now going into debug mode. So debugging is basically just like stepping into your code and then until you hit like breakpoints and then see like what kind of variables you have over here. So now you can see on the left side here, and that's quite funny with that little bug thing over here. So now I hit this breakpoint. There's some small information over here, so I can go deeper, I can go into a function, or I can let go out of a function, for example. And now with F10, I can quickly step over my code, and you will see things stepping over here. So now I have to go, let's press 4, for example. As you noticed, I moved into that input, so I went to my terminal. I'm going now back into the board. And here you see like move has become 4, because basically that was my input. And count became increased over here. So here you notice like count, and you see like little tiny like different colors. So basically this means that something got updated. And this is how developers most of their time spend their time. Okay, so I hope that was interesting. Let's quickly jump over here again. Of course, if you're writing code, and this is just like a very simple sample, an increment function and a decrement function, you also want to write some unit tests. Perhaps not as a data scientist, but as a developer, you definitely want to have unit tests, because usually that's also part of your definition of done in the agile working. So that's also possible. There's also some integration with that over here with testing. So I wrote my code, very simple on my piece of code, and these are my codes to test. So here in the gutter, you already see like I can run here my tests, and this one's going to fail. I'm going to tell you up front, it's not that I made a big mistake, I know it's going to fail. But I just want to show you like how does it look. So here it's directly detected which unit tests I have, and I'm just going to quickly run them. Now it's spinning up, okay. Wow, okay. So that's a lot of red for this thing. So here I can see like, oh, okay, this one passed, this one didn't pass. So assert 2 equals 4. Yeah, of course that doesn't work. Perhaps in some alternative universe where different mathematics is going on, but in our universe, it has to be 2 if you decrement 1 from 3. So if I now run this one again, and now it should turn green. Okay, so super. So you see, I don't have to run all my unit tests again. I can just do it like this. Okay, super. Let's go here. This is some sample code that I found on the internet. This is just basically reading in a data CSV. Again, let's open a preview. We already seen that part, how that works. This is basically like people who survived from the Titanic crash on the iceberg and who unfortunately didn't. So this is just public data that you can download. That's how I got to this data. And here we're going to make a Jupyter notebook. So basically doing some data cleaning, some replacement of things. And here we're going to make scikit-learn. And here a bit of Keras. I'm not that much familiar with Keras, so I'm more doing PyTorch. So if I'm writing some pieces in a wrong way, please forgive me, because it's not my main thing to do. So I can do this and run all. And basically, this is again like Jupyter Notebook. So you see I have a nice graph. I can zoom into that. Let's quickly go in here. Okay, so here there's a very clear ratio over here. So sex and female, a different way of doing the plotting. Let's see. Let's go down, let's go down, let's go down. And here apparently there's some runs, some epochs going on. Okay, so basically here I got a model which is trained on 61.2%. Well, I'm not a data scientist, so, but it looks kind of low. I always think it has to be higher, no? So, okay. But either way, this is how you can run it, and this is locally. Now, this is locally, and it's a very short script, so, and not a very heavy script, so I can run it locally, but I don't have a GPU in this machine. What if I need some, like, say, for example, like custom vision detection or whatever, or train like really heavy models that really need a lot of power? And I don't want to spend like 4,000 euros on a new laptop with some fancy NVIDIA RTX 3080 GPU, for example. Well, if you can already buy them, of course, because apparently with the pandemic, there was quite some time that you couldn't buy it. I can make use of the power of the cloud. So basically, it's just running my software on someone else's computer, like they say. I'm going to make use of Azure because basically that's, well, I'm from the ASUG, so that's why I also like Azure. I also tried to prepare something for that. And I mainly want to show you not just like what's possible, because basically here I just found this little piece of code online. Let's scan some Keras. But I already know from my PC it's going to be way too heavy to actually do a lot of training on it. So let's try to get this into cloud. So basically what this is going to do is calling like MNIST. I think that's the most ubiquitous data set for vision, the handwriting one. I see that basically everywhere in every course. So let's try to do that. Now, I could go to the Azure portal, and let's try to open up the thing over here. So I could go to portal.azure.com. And I could set up something for machine learning. You see, I already have some set up over here. I could create a new one. I have to go, but we're doing Visual Studio Code, so why not try to do that from Visual Studio Code? And that's basically what we're going to do in this last demo. Okay, this one can be closed. Okay, super. Now, here I have because I have installed the Azure extension. Here I can see like I have the Azure extension shows several things like functions, storage, virtual machines. It's also easy to make, like databases. I think I need to reset it, I guess. And I think I first need to log into Azure from this one, because I used to log in from the other one. So here I'm just going to my terminal. If you're wondering, like, how did I get this one? This is just like I used Oh My Posh. So if you want to show that one, let's see the profile. Okay, this is kind of funny. I'm just making use of Notepad here. I told you it's the most generic thing. So if you're interested in how I set this one up, that's basically how I do it. I installed several modules, and then here, whenever I started, I just set it to this theme. This is made by another Belgian MVP, by the way, in PowerShell. So if you're interested in setting that one up, there's like quite a good bunch of blog posts on the internet to be found. I just like it because, yeah, it shows me like how long did something take, where am I? There's also Git integration, so I can see on which branch I am. Personally, I like it a lot. So let's do here like an Azure login. And this is just like a first time thing. Okay, let's try my test account. Okay, super. I'm now logged in. So we should be good to go. And this keeps on spinning. So basically, I'm just going to create here a new workspace. And this generates a YAML file. Now, YAML is always cool for deployment. And let's just copy this one over. I prepared something, of course. And I'm going to save this quickly. Let's call it workspace.yaml. The reason why I need to save it is because then I can right click and say create resources. So while I'm doing that, it should give me a bit of information over here. And actually, it should create a team workspace tree. So let's try and take a look over here. It seems to be a bit slower today than when I was rehearsing it yesterday. Okay, that's not so nice. Okay. Luckily, I have a backup, of course. No, this is taking a bit longer than I expected. Let's try that again, because I have the feeling that this is something going wrong. Let's close this one. Okay, this is no, it should be 3. Hello. Oh, okay. I think I know what's going on here. Let's try and put this one over here. Okay, now let's call this 4, for example, just to make sure. Okay, now everything is, of course, like messing up because it's now reaching out a lot of things. So, and it keeps on persisting on that Teamworks 2. And that's really weird because that was basically the name of my of the one that I set up yesterday. Of course, this is a highly experimental extension at the moment, so I'm just going to, let's see if I just stop this one. And let's close also the other one. Okay, let's try again, and otherwise we just go to my fallback scenario, okay? So this should be my MNIST. Okay. So you see some nice color coding over here. And of course, I need to quickly log into Azure again. How are we doing on time? Pretty good, okay. So Yes, we're going to make use of my test account. Super. Okay. Okay. Yes, I know I can update to the latest Azure functions. They have updates every 5 seconds, it seems sometimes. Okay, let's try it and do this. Create a resource. Fingers crossed. Hello. Okay, this is working. You see. So basically, this is now creating using my YAML file, this one over here.
Kris, while you're setting up, sorry to interrupt. While you're setting up the
It's
stage,
okay.
can I ask some questions? We're running short on time.
How many minutes do we still have?
We're kind of 1.5 minutes overboard.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Well, then let me quickly show you basically what can be done next, and then I'll just round up. So basically, if that one is being installed and should be pretty soon, then you can go to compute clusters, create a new compute, which is going to basically generate another YAML file, which you're going to execute. And then you execute this job.yaml file, which is basically going to package up my train.py file. And then using this environment, as you can see, I have something with CUDA. This laptop cannot understand CUDA, and that's basically why I'm using Power of the Cloud. Let's quickly then jump into a portal.azure.com and go to my backup story that I showed you. Okay, so this is my team workspace 2. I can launch the studio. So basically, this is normally, I could have done this all hand by mouse clicking and whatever. And that run took like 10 minutes yesterday. And this is basically my training. And it got an accuracy of 0.91, which is, I think, pretty good. So basically, this is all that's being set up, but you can set it up from Visual Studio Code. You can also get the log files back, like this one. This is normally what you get to see in Visual Studio Code. But that would have taken like a bit, so that's why I also put something on the side. Okay, I'm quickly going to round up my presentation, and then we're going to go to okay. So basically, whoops. Okay, so basically we're now heading to Q&A. If you want to get into contact later on, this is my email address. I try to follow it up. I'm usually quite some emails behind, so if it takes a couple of days, please don't shoot me. And this is me on Twitter. So thank you very much for listening already. I hope you found it interesting and that you want to go out and play with Visual Studio Code. I try to just highlight the things. Please go through the documentation. There's a myriad of samples, and not only for Python or machine learning, but also for other things. I just try to highlight what is possible. Now let's go to Q&A.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Kris. Another question from Anders. So this is really interesting that you show how to get into Python using Visual Code. I will try it out. You're using Azure to use the GPU in the cloud? Does this cost anything? On the Google Colab, you use GPU in the cloud for free.
Yes. Well, it depends. There are things on Azure which are for free. But of course, if you want to make use of like heavy duty CPUs or GPUs, you will start paying per usage. But from what I understand, it's the same thing on Google Colab, because if you, well, I noticed from my wife, in the beginning, she used, before I introduced her to Visual Studio Code, she used Google Colab a lot. Why? Because she learned that on university, because it's quite popular over there. It also integrates very nicely. I also like Google Colab, by the way. It's not that I'm Azure focused all the way. I also go and look over the wall and see what the others are doing, just pick what's the right thing for me. But if you really want to have some very heavy stuff being run, you also get quickly to that quota on Google Colab of free usage. So either you start having like an enterprise edition, I forgot the exact name, but I just call it now an enterprise edition, and you also start paying for that. I know when my wife she was doing so, she followed a course at the university for her PhD. They also made use of Google Colab a lot, so she had to run and rerun and rerun. It also depended a lot on like how many people were using Google Colab, the free version, how much GPU she was able to get, and sometimes it took like quite a long time to train a model. And then I set up something like this on Azure because I have some Azure credits that I got thanks to my Azure MVP ship. So I spun up like some very heavy duty machines, something what I usually would not do because they're quite costly. But then it was like several minutes and we got the same result. So do you pay on cloud? Yes, of course, nothing is for free. If I take my car and have to fill it up with gasoline, well, I pay quite a lot of money to just being able to go from point A to B. Could I go for free? Well, I could go for a walk. It will take me longer. Of course, I need to also get new shoes after a while. So basically something for free, it's always nice. But at some point you start paying. And same as from what I understood also for Google Colab. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, pretty much. Sounds more like logistics. Hey,
okay.
Hey, Kris, thank you very much for the talk. We're kind of short on time, so I'll have to cut off for now. For everything else, again, if you need to reach out to Kris, you have his credentials. You can talk to him on the Pine platform. And for everything else, thank you for the talk. Interactive and interesting.
Okay, thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.
Cheers, Kris.